Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Greg Migliore. Welcome to another episode of the Autoblog Podcast. Joining me today in studio, Senior Editor for All Things Green, John Snyder. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Doing well. And Associate Editor, Joel Stocksdale.
Hey.
Cool. Let's jump right in. So today's show is actually pretty simple. We've got a ton of Frankfurt news, and we're going to go through the fleet. We've got a lot of cool things in the fleet, too. Super Duty, an F250 with a Power Stroke diesel. So we'll tell you a little bit what that's like to drive and just how we feel about driving big trucks. We also have the Lexus GS F, which was a lot of fun, and the Bmw X3, which I literally just drove into the office a couple hours ago after letting my dog out for lunch. Lastly, we will spend your money. Speaking of dogs, we have a special guest in the studio, but in the office today, Magnolia.
Yeah, my little pup. She ran into one of the glass meeting room walls and interrupted a meeting a few minutes ago. But
we weren't going to say anything. But
yeah, she's fine. It was really funny, though. But now she's hanging out with podcast producer Eric, who's babysitting her in our other studio.
There we go. That's all you need. Teamwork here. That's what we do. So Frankfurt, I thought this was a pretty good show this year.
Yeah, it was pretty green too. A lot of stuff that I really liked, and that a lot of good stuff that seems pretty realistic. Some cool production cars, and then some interesting concepts. And then I really like that Hyundai electric race car too, the Hyundai Veloster N ETCR.
Yeah, that was sweet looking. They did a good job of, making it look the part for sure. It stands out in a crowded field over in Frankfurt, which is not easy for Hyundai to do. It's not their home auto show.
Well, they had a ton of things there. They
had
their 45 concept. They had a bunch of stuff.
The 45, Joel, you and I were just talking about that. I think that looks really cool, kind of retro. I think it's very sweet.
Yeah, it's inspired by Hyundai's first production car and also a concept that led up to that. And it definitely nails the retro futuristic kind of look. It's all silver and angular, and it looks inspired by kind of the 70s and 80s. It's actually kind of funny to think that this is now 2 Frankfurt shows in a row where we've seen a car maker make an electric vehicle concept based on kind of their old stuff, because the Honda E, the concept version, made its debut at Frankfurt 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah, and this one, it's very conceptual as a concept car. There's not a lot of concrete details, but it's sort of going to show what they can do with cars as they become more automated, make it more of a living space for when people are doing something other than driving. How do they hang out in their cars? Which I don't know. I'm a little torn on this car because we've seen a lot of concepts like that, but this one's pretty well executed, but I'm not sure how I feel about the looks. I don't know. It's a tough one, but I'll give it a pass though.
Okay. Pass. Yeah. Okay. I like it. I think it looks great. If they did build something like this, it'll be really tough for them to make this concept come to life.
Oh, yeah,
I think
for sure.
It's just, we say that all the time, but I think here it would be especially difficult. By the time this thing came out, it would probably look like an Elantra GT or something, which would be sad, I think.
I think the shape of it is actually pretty production feasible. It's just making it fit in with the rest of the Hyundai lineup right now would be kind of tricky, because it clearly pulls from design language from 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah, say 45 years ago.
Yeah. I'm not that great at math. That's why I'm in this business and not an engineer.
The back end really looks like mid-70s, which it'd be interesting to see if they could do something like that. Because again, you're right. Even with crash testing, they might have to do some tricks there. Same with sort of those angled yet also slab sides. Again, this is totally not what you look at in the Hyundai dealership right now. So, go ahead, Joel.
Now, if you want to talk about an electric car that really doesn't look very feasible at all, but is really cool, there's the Audi AI Trail Quattro.
Yeah, that one's pretty wild.
I was just going to bring that up. It's awesome. It was close to being my favorite car at the show. It probably was my actual just pure favorite. I love the different like ranges, like on road, and then if you go on the trail, they specified, just how much range you could get off of there.
Oh, cool.
Man, they should do this, like build this thing. We're being fanboys about it, but it's okay to be a fan.
But how would Audi do? I mean, like I could actually see Jeep doing something like this more likely, because like just in case you haven't seen an audience, it kind of looks like a cross between a Wrangler and a Mars Rover.
Yeah,
like
Sounds good to me.
It's got huge chunky tires and like the sleek, like futuristic body kind of suspended between the giant tires, and it's totally cool. But I don't see how Audi could ever. And like it's not like any Audi that is in production right now. Audi doesn't have like a hardcore off-roader.
Well, maybe they should. I mean, if you're going to go to the trouble of doing a concept like this, why not build it?
I mean, it's kind of the rage right now. I mean, look at Rivian, Bollinger, Jeep's electrifying things. It's going to be a hot part of the market at some point in the near future for people with the resources to spend on that sort of thing.
This one's essentially like, it's almost like one of those three-wheeler things. It has four wheels, but it's like one of those like three-wheeler things that you see on the road that just...
Right. Yeah.
It's like, you could drive it on the road, but it's better, on the track. And like, this seems like something that you wouldn't really want to drive it. You'd want to drive it on the trail.
Which technically you wouldn't have to drive it because it does have full autonomy on street roads. I mean,
we're
you have
overlooking
to drive it
the
on
elephant
the dirt,
here.
but...
It's the Audi AI.
Right.
So yeah, it's true. But then you'd have to sit in this like kind of like dune buggy thing while it drives itself. That seems kind of terrifying. But yeah, check it out. Pictures are awesome. I mean, we gotta talk about the Defender.
Mm-hmm.
I think it lived up to the hype. I'd give it an A-, which is a very good grade, like 90 something percent, like 91, 92. I think it looks great. I think it's surprisingly more capable than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah.
I mean, like, there's a couple of serious motors under the hood of this thing.
Yeah, I forget what the towing capacity is, but it's
8,200.
Yeah,
which
is
is
really impressive.
Yeah, that's really impressive.
So that one's pretty cool.
I think it's going to really stand out. Almost like when you see this thing on the street, you're going to be like, wow. You know, it's one of those, Jaguar and Land Rover have done this. Like, they bring their concepts to life. Like Jerry McGovern and, previously Ian Callum at Jaguar, you see these things like the F-Type, I think is a great example. And it's like, wow, that's like driving a concept car. And not everybody could do that. So I think that's awesome. I don't love the front end a little bit. I feel like they could have gone, everybody's calling this retro. I think they could have gone more retro, maybe with just some of the body paneling and stuff. Back end does look very retro though. Overall though, like I said, a solid A-, really good effort. What do you guys think?
I feel like you don't want to go too retro just because, I mean, like...
That's fair. That's fair.
Because one of the issues that I've always seen with like going super retro is where do you go for the next generation? Because it's like, well, we've decided that we're gonna just stay with the same sort of design. I mean, it can work,
right? You sort of paint yourself into a corner if you do that,
right? I mean, I kind of feel a little bit like that. Maybe what's happened with the Chevy Camaro, that like the current generation,
Dodge Challenger too.
Yeah, I mean, and it can work. Challenger's milking that design for all it's worth, and you can break out of it. I mean, you look at the Ford Mustang. And it went super retro from 2005 to just a couple years ago. And then they went super modern on the next one.
Yeah, that's a good point.
But I feel like that's always kind of a tricky thing. So like if you can kind of find that happy medium between modern and retro, that gives you a little bit of wiggle room for future generations.
So my favorite car of the show was the Mercedes Vision Eqs. So it's like the previewing... the EQ version of the S-Class, all electric. I think this thing looks awesome. If you just take those giant wheels, I think they're like 26-inch wheels on this thing, shrink them down to a realistic size, and tone down that light-up grille a bit, I think it's pretty much good to go. This thing looks really sleek. It looks typically Mercedes. Mercedes says it's going to have a 100 kilowatt hour battery pack with 435 miles of range, which is really good. But I mean, that's Europe cycle, so who knows how that'll translate. But 2 electric motors, 469 horsepower, 560 pound-feet of torque. And then, all the things you expect from an S-Class, all the comfort and convenience and tech. Mercedes has been doing a really good job of implementing tech into its interiors lately. And yeah, I can see this car becoming, not having to change a whole lot and being something I would really want.
And looking at spy shots, the production one is going to look pretty similar to it.
Yeah.
And I'm genuinely kind of surprised because the EQS is super swoopy.
It really is.
It's really curvaceous and flowing, and it's...
That's something that I feel like Mercedes has been able to do well on a lot of its cars.
Yeah, but a lot of them are still like very traditional shaped. They're kind of straight and broad-shouldered and kind of... I mean, there's definitely like an organic rounding to them, but overall, they still look pretty traditional in shape. This looks... I know that one of our editors said something about it. It looks a lot like the first generation Mercedes CLS.
Yeah, that's the sense that I sort of get from it. It's got that vibe to it.
Let me guess, that was a Riswick or a Kirstein observation?
I almost think it might have been Zach, but I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah.
Zach had a great line. I think he wrote up one of the stories on this, like how it's just such an LED light show. I think he said it's lit, which is totally true.
Oh, wow.
I mean, do you guys remember the band Lit, by the way?
Vaguely.
College house party rock.
I couldn't name one of their songs, but I'd probably know it if I heard it.
Yeah. Anyways, this car is definitely lit with all the different lights. Oh, I mean, literally, I think it gets the award for like maybe most beautiful in the show.
I think so.
I mean, I think it's gorgeous.
I'm looking at the spy shots right now, and if they can just take off, I want to see what's under the camo on the grill specifically, because that could sort of make or break this car visually for me.
I think it's going to be similar, or at least it's going to look like the EQC grill.
Yeah. Which in person isn't too crazy.
No, it's pretty normal.
Yeah.
I mean, if this is sort of like the counterpart to the S-Class, I think it's okay if they really kind of bling out the grill and make it, give it that gravitas, if you will. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm excited about this car. I think it looks really good. But speaking of grills, there was a BMW grill there that I signed on yesterday morning, maybe about 6:15, 6:30 in the morning. Jeremy was doing like sort of our dawn patrol before the rest of you guys signed on. And I just wanted to get on early because it's auto show day. Yeah, I like it, And like literally his line was like, yeah, I'm working on the Concept 4. Gah. Like, what's he talking about? Then I opened up my email and saw the pictures. I'm like, whoa. What do you guys think?
I mean, it's... I'm actually getting used to this look. This weird sort of variation on the double kidneys. This big sort of bucktooth look was on the iNext concept too, which I didn't like that too much. But here, this is becoming more like the double kidneys are growing into an actual grill rather than just these little sort of inserts, sort of visually. And I think that's okay. I think if they keep massaging it a little bit, they might get to something where it looks kind of like what they're going for now, but a little more palatable to the general audience, I think. But I'm cool with it.
Yeah, I think they can make it work. I don't think it quite works on this concept. I think it's a little bit too wide and a little bit too tall still. Because the thing is, I mean, BMW can make a sort of like narrow vertical twin kidney shape work. They've done it in the past. Like a lot of their old cars, the 2002, the old 6 Series, like the CSL, like shark-like looking BMW coupes. They've got like the narrow kidneys and they've got like some grill off to the sides around it, which kind of helps smooth it all out. But I think like just shrinking this down a little bit, making it a little bit more vertical and making the split between the kidneys a little bit more prominent, I think they could have something there. And maybe even if they make it like lean forward even just a little bit more, kind of like those old shark-like BMWs.
Yeah. I
Okay,
love
you're right.
that.
I get that. There you go.
Like,
Yeah.
I can see how they could make this work, but this concept doesn't quite pull it off. It is definitely the best version of this, like, like super tall grill. But yeah, it needs a little bit more massaging, and I do understand everybody's gut reaction to be terrified of it. But I
Yeah.
do think they could make it work. I don't know if they will, but they could.
I don't totally get what they're doing here as far as like roll out this grill that seems almost like intentionally kind of crazy and garish. Like, I don't know. I mean, I guess maybe they think, hey, this is good, which is a little scary.
I mean, Lexus did it, and we're growing used to that.
It's
with
true.
the spindle grill. I mean, there was a
Yeah.
lot of negative sentiment toward that when it first started.
To be fair,
showing
I've
up
always
on
liked the
cars.
Lexus grill. I think, hey, it's all right. They're going for it.
I have too.
It's fine.
So I think what it is that I think what probably their customers want is they want to shout to everybody, look, I have a BMW. Look at that grill. It's so big. It's so obviously a BMW. I mean, that's what's happened with the X7 and the redesigned 7 Series. They've got gigantic kidneys. Right?
I really like those. I really like the.
Those are
look at the one we
growing
had.
on me. I
Yeah.
kind of like them too.
I still hate it on the 7 Series, but
I love
I
it.
don't mind it on the X7 because I think the X7 has enough mass there that it can
Yeah.
kind of pull it off.
for sure.
But they just slapped the giant grill on the existing 7 Series
Without
and
downsizing it to the car.
yeah, it kind of looks really front heavy. It just doesn't work there. It needs to be. It's still like you can make it bigger, but you still got to make sure it's proportional to the rest of the car.
Yeah, I think they could have gone a little more retro here with these sort of like upright kidney grills. Like, because like you guys have both said, there's some great grills in their history. They could have been a little more subtle, maybe a little more retro would have been the right play. But to me, this isn't working. I'm trying to pull together like a hits and miss column here. That's a miss to me. It's like, it's sort of like, if, pick a sports team, they change their logo. If you change that logo and it's like an iconic one, you got to get it right. And I sort of feel like BMW is kind of playing with fire here in the last few years with their grills, with like, hey, it's great you're willing to experiment. And definitely car design lately has gotten, I think, is like blingy and in your face as at any time since like the 60s, maybe even the 50s with like fins and grills. I mean, so they're going for it, but man, I don't know. I think the Concept 4 should stay the Concept 4.
Well, and I
For
really
the
think,
past.
especially in the luxury market, like it is all about telling everybody that you're rich and look at this fancy car that I have. I mean,
Yeah.
like almost all of the brands are now offering illuminated badges on the front. BMW now has an illuminated grille because it's like
That's crazy,
those twin
yeah.
kidneys are like that's their badge, that's their signature. This
I
is what
like
they
it
want
on
everybody to
Mercedes
show.
though. I love seeing that like lit
I do too.
star
I'm-
coming down the street. I think that looks so
I'm
elegant.
mixed. I actually saw an Infinity with a light up badge once. That was kind of weird to see.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'm kind of mixed. I'm definitely of the opinion that like I'm okay with extra lighting like that as long as it doesn't distract or like as long as it works with the actual design of the car. Like a car that I forgot actually had like some grille illumination was the Mazda 6. You could buy this like dealer add-on that would add like this little faint glow around the chrome strip that goes underneath the grille.
Yeah, that's a
And-
neat look.
Yeah, it's very subtle. It's very nice. It's like that I can get behind because that like augments and like bolsters the design. It's not just to like look at the money I have. It's like it's actually a design piece.
Now, sticking with BMW, but going away from like the high vis to the opposite. Did you guys see the Vantablack X6?
No, I didn't see it.
Well, remember, Joel, you and I were talking about
Yeah.
like recently, like, has anyone made a Vantablack car? Vantablack is this black color that was created by some lab that absorbs like 99.96% of light, and so it just reflects
Yeah.
nothing.
Basically, like it's got all these little carbon nanotubes in
Yeah.
the paint, and when the light goes in there, it starts bouncing off of all these tubes, and like it never bounces back out. It's just
Right.
stuck in there.
That's a sweet car, I think. That's very cool.
Yeah, I I've been waiting for a car to have this. It's just so dark. It looks like a black hole driving around, and all you really see is the grill and some reflection off the windows and the lights. But that grill stands out quite a bit, and then like the rest of the car, you can't really see the curves. As it says in our title, it almost looks two-dimensional.
Well, and looking at the photos, it looks like somebody photoshopped it. That like they just went in and like erased like all of the like metal parts and left all the glass and the lights and things. It looks really, really weird. But I've seen some videos and like walkarounds, and it really does look like that.
Yeah.
But I mean, because the other thing is these are press photos and they're like really carefully tailored and edited to make sure that it looks the best as possible. So it does look like somebody may have messed with it, but
yeah,
it really is that black. It's really weird.
I'm so intrigued by this paint. Hyundai at the Olympics, was it last year, 2 years ago? In Korea, they had a building and they had a wall that was painted in this Vantablack, and it was. I saw it in person. It was so dark. It's like unbelievably dark. It's like it looks as if there's a vacuum of space in that spot, like a complete void, like a black hole or something. Like something has destroyed that part of reality. And I just think it looks so cool.
That is just an amazing way to describe a car. It looks like someone destroyed that part of reality that you're driving in. The first place I actually saw this car was in this like newsletter I read on. It's like a tech kind of economist website. They're very insidery, and they covered this car. And I thought to myself, wow, this must be a big deal. And like, it's really just been getting a lot of pickup. Like CNN did a like kind of feature on it. Mm-hmm. Just places you wouldn't expect to really dive this deeply into a car like this. So I think that's cool. One more thought on the Concept X4.
Oh, sure.
So if you're a sports fan, Google Michigan State jerseys from last weekend, and they're horrible. That to me is the analogy for what the Concept 4 looks like. They were just lit on social media. Everybody hated them. They were neon. So, yeah. Anyways, what else should we talk about for Frankfurt?
We should talk about Volkswagen Id3.
We should.
Yeah. And I think we may not have jumped on it right away just because it does pretty much look like the concept that came out a few years ago. But it's production now. This is the production car, and it's going to have 3 different ranges, and like the maximum range is going to be over 340 miles.
Yeah.
It's remarkable.
Yeah, I really like it. I think it was well executed from sort of beginning to end by Volkswagen, from concept to this production car we see now. I'd totally buy it. It's about the same size as a Golf, right?
Yeah.
A little bit longer wheelbase, so that sounds fun to me.
And it's rear drive.
Yeah, yeah, and it's like pretty powerful too. It's
like 200 horsepower, 220 some pound-feet of torque. It's like just a little bit less powerful than a GTI, but again, it's rear drive.
Yeah,
and like instant on torque.
Yeah,
it sounds super fun. I think it looks great. Volkswagen really brought it to the Frankfurt Motor Show, as they always do. Mm-hmm. But I think as they kind of really move past Dieselgate, they're obsessively electric. I mean, right down to those rumors we heard about them maybe buying Tesla, which they promptly denied. But I mean, they're serious about electric. They're a company that has a ton of engineering resources, a lot of just flat out resources, a lot of money.
Now in partnership with Ford.
Yeah, I mean, these guys could move the industry forward.
Yeah.
Cars like this are a great way to do it.
Yeah, and this car, I mean, the power, the range, the price is actually pretty reasonable too. Mm-hmm. I think it's going to be around like 30,000 euros, which is roughly $30,000, give or take, based on exchange rates. This shows that Volkswagen is serious about electric cars.
Yeah.
And there's more coming. There's a crossover coming that will be the first ID version that we get in the US.
Yeah.
And of course, there's the retro bus that's coming up.
I can't wait to see what they do with that. And I hope if they can do what they did with this ID3 from sort of beginning to end and apply that same level of, I guess, diligence and dedication to the core of what that concept was. That the ID Buzz is going to be really sweet.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. No, I mean, Volkswagen's doing a good job of making electric seem like something fun and special.
Yeah.
Which other companies like Chevy, for example, I think are still kind of treating it like this science go to the moon experiment. Like the Bolt's great. Oddly, I haven't heard much about the Bolt lately. It seems like they should be.
I mean, they
promoting
got
that
more range though,
Right.
in this past month.
Yeah, and they're
which is
working.
nice.
They're working on sort of a next gen version based on this same platform before they switch their next EV platform. But so yeah, they're kind of there's going to be something else coming pretty soon from the Bolt family before there's a big change. But
Cool.
but yeah, they've been kind of quiet about it lately.
Yeah. Anyways, my point being is Volkswagen's kind of like, no, you want to drive an electric car.
Yes.
Here it is. We have
do.
all these different shapes and sizes. John does. I do too.
I've got to be honest though, it's like Volkswagen really needs to revive the Beetle on this. I mean, like
Yes.
Yeah, you're totally right.
rear motor, rear drive. Like it is just begging to be a Beetle again.
I know, absolutely, 100%. I said that when they killed off the Beetle. I mean, in 10 years, we're going to see this nameplate revived as an EV, and I hope they do.
And I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm excited about the bus, but it's like, guys, come on, like, we should bring the Beetle back again.
Yeah.
So other news, I like the Lamborghini Sian.
Yeah, I have no
That's
idea how to pronounce
electric, sort of hybrid, I should say.
Yeah,
We talked about that a little bit last week.
yeah, and it's really
V12 with hybrid power. So
yeah,
that's cool.
It uses supercapacitors for
That's
its
an awesome
electrification,
word.
which charges very quickly, and more importantly, here discharges very quickly. So just immediate boost of power. Delivered very quickly and very potently.
So electric range is not exactly a focus for this thing.
No, not at all. No. This is not an efficiency play one bit. This is 100% performance, and I like that they're trying something new. Not a lot of people are doing supercapacitors in their electrification. There's one Japanese company that's building a supercar that's powered by supercapacitors. I forget.
Oh
what it's
yeah,
called.
we've
both written about it
like
before.
Owl Spark or
Yeah,
Spark
yeah.
Owl.
A Spark.
Yes, A Spark Owl. That's
Yeah.
it. Yeah, I remember. I was at the. That was actually at the last Frankfurt show, and I was at the unveiling for that.
And that's powered by supercapacitors, I believe. And I've seen a couple of videos where they just show like acceleration tests, and it just leaps into light speed.
Yeah, that's actually another car that we haven't heard much about lately.
The problem with supercapacitors is you can't really store energy very well for long periods of time. Batteries are better at that, but if you really want to discharge it quickly, supercapacitors are going to give you that boost.
Ferrari Convertibles, kind of what we expected. They look good. Nothing too shocking
the
there.
F8 Spider is literally exactly the same as the coupe, except it's got a convertible top. Like it's the exact same engine, exact same power. Like it's a little heavier because of the top, and so it's a little bit slower, like to maximum top speed.
Definitely. They look good.
Yeah.
Nothing too exciting.
Which is weird to say about Ferrari, but yeah, it was sort of an understated
I mean,
event,
It's just that it was
you know?
it's 100% expected. It's like, of course this was coming out.
it's like the Fall European Auto Show. They already showed Geneva is generally where they show the like XYZ car. And then the following fall, here's the convertible. Or the following year in the fall, the convertible. That's just how they roll. That's a good thing. Yeah, I mean, overall, very good show. This is actually the first Frankfurt. I haven't been since, when was I there? I was there in 15. And this is the first time that I've actually kind of missed going. Because I've gone several times, like 15, 13, and 11. It's every other year, by the way. It's a lot of work. You walk so far, and it's usually hot.
Yeah,
I
Joel
mean-
and I were there 2 years ago, and man, just the amount of steps I took was incredible.
Your
It
phone will
takes
say
you-
7 miles at the end of the day.
It takes you about 20 minutes to walk from end to end of that convention center.
Yeah,
And I mean, in like each of the German automakers gets one big convention hall. The Mercedes one was 3 stories tall the last time I was there.
yeah.
And I mean, like this place is so big. There were 2 media centers when I went last, and everybody just went into the one that was like close to the entrance. It wasn't until like halfway through the day that I'd gotten all the way to the other end of the convention center, over where BMW was. And I was just wandering around, and I stumbled across the other one. I think I was the first one that entire day to find it, because all the lights were out, there wasn't a soul in sight, and all the breakfast food was still there.
Jackpot. Okay.
Yeah,
I remember
it was weird. It was like finding a lost city.
The pretzels with the butter, and like cut in half with the butter in the middle.
Yep.
Yeah.
It was all
amazing.
still there.
I will say this, at the Geneva Motor Show, they used to, I think they finally ironed this out. There would be like one person with like, it wasn't an espresso machine, it might have been, but like one person with one machine making tiny espresso shots. So like literally it's 7 a.m. Geneva. Everybody was out the night before. Like everybody wants their coffee. It's like, sorry, like one person giving out espresso shots that are being made to order is taking forever. So
I've also noticed that at the European shows, there's like copious amounts of beer,
oh yeah.
but like very little water and soda and like other things for like actual rehydration.
Yeah.
European auto shows are not for the faint of heart. Let's put it that way. But yeah, check out all of our coverage. It was another great year for that. We've got some mega galleries going up from our ace snapper, Drew Phillips, who wasn't there, but sort of gathered up what he could. So lots of cool things. Editor's picks will be coming out probably by the time you are listening to this. We're recording this on Wednesday afternoon. It was raining here in Detroit. Probably by the time you hear this, the editor's picks will be up.
Yeah.
That's always fun. That helps you kind of sort out what the best in show was. So how about we talk about what we've been driving? We had some cool things in the fleet the last week or so. We'll start off with the Super Duty. This thing it had the Power Stroke diesel. It was huge. It was a monstrous truck. I enjoyed it. I think what's nice about, a big truck like this with this kind of big cabin is it's a legit, almost like an SUV with a bed. I put my kid's car seat in there. There's plenty of room. I think big trucks, even though they're bigger than they've ever been, I think they handle, they steer, they stop in a way more civilized manner than they ever have. So you're not really intimidated. Plus, like a 250, that kind of class, I don't think is crazy intimidating to drive. Like a Ram Power Wagon, it's not that big a deal. You could drive it. It's not that much bigger than a Ram 1500. So, yeah, I liked it. It's fun. I didn't do any Super Duty things with it. If there was ever a time to get some mulch, this would have been it.
No, it would have been when we had that.
The dump truck.
Yeah.
I could have mulched my whole yard.
I mean, Reese did.
Yeah.
Reese did, yeah. So, I don't know. You guys like it?
Yeah, I enjoyed it, and I love diesel full size pickups. That's one of my favorite things about them. Is just the way those engines pull. I mean, these trucks weigh like 6,000 or more pounds, and yet they just take off with these diesel engines. It's effortless, and it just keeps pulling and pulling like the longer you stay in it. It's a weird, eerie feeling, and it's a lot of fun. Yeah, and the thing that I've had a hard time putting my finger exactly on it is why driving these giant trucks are so fun. Because the thing is, like, I own a Miata. I love small, light, nimble little things, but I love driving giant trucks, and I'm not entirely sure why. I was curious, like, what your thoughts might be on that.
Man, I agree with you, and it's one of those weird things because I'm not really a truck guy, despite my videos that I've made. But
do you like trucks?
I don't really care too much when there's an F-150 in the office or something like that. It's just like, okay, cool. But when there's something like this, and I drive it, it's downright fun. You're bouncing down the road, you're way up high. I don't know what it is, but it seems to be pretty universal. And I little boys and stuff love trucks, but this goes beyond that. All my friends, male or female, they all want. When I have one of these trucks, they're just like, I wish I could drive that, because they're just fun.
It's a very deeply rooted, intrinsic
Yeah.
thing. I think people just do like big trucks, boys, girls, whatever, you name it. My son who's 19 months plays with trucks and he loves big trucks. He calls them Bebas. And whenever he sees a big truck like this, he's like, yeah, he needs to stand in it and pretend to drive it. I think just they appeal to the kid in all of us. And I think it also helps too, like, if you don't have to use them for maybe their intended purpose, like work, if you need to use a work truck for work, it becomes a tool. If it's like you get to drive this thing for fun, well, hey, it's like this toy, So I think maybe that's where some of it comes into.
It's a much different experience than your
definitely.
typical daily drive, unless you own one. But because it's just. I think for me, it's how high I am, and I can just see above all the traffic. I feel like I could, drive over a building, and yeah, that's just fun.
Yeah, me too. I think that's it. It's the height and then the fact that so many of these big trucks are so well equipped these days that it's like you're driving like a lifted S-Class or something. It's an exaggeration, but they're very nice trucks.
I always feel a little guilty though, just because I know how much gas I'm using when I'm driving them. I always have to do something to atone for it.
Plant a tree when you drive the F-250 home.
Yeah, and actually, I think thinking about it, I think something else about large trucks is that I think there's actually a fair amount of driver engagement with it too, and it's a different one than like a light manual sports car because it's big enough that you're having to think just a little bit more about like where you're maneuvering it and thinking about where it is. The steering is like really heavy, like because it's a really heavy truck, and so having to work just a little bit more like for doing the steering, and like you usually have to steer a lot because it's a really slow like steering ratio. So I think I may also enjoy just the fact that like you have to be a little bit more conscientious and involved, and I enjoy driver involvement. I like something that makes me a part of it, and also the fact that like they are much more refined now, but there's still a little bit of kind of bumpiness to it, and sort of like it's very experiential, and also like I said, I mean the diesel engines are awesome. They're a lot of fun.
Definitely.
Yeah, this one in particular, 450 horsepower, 935 pound-feet of torque, and then when you look at some of the other heavy-duty trucks out there, like the Ram diesel with, what was it, 1,000 horsepower?
Yeah, and that's all stock. I mean,
that's crazy.
You can.
I'm sorry, not 1,000 horsepower, 1,000 pound-feet.
Right. And
that's
the
just
thing is,
insane.
You can make them so much more powerful and torquey. Like if you want to get lost down a rabbit hole, like look into like modified diesel trucks. They run fast at the drag strip. And I've seen them making like 2,000 to 3,000 pound-feet of torque, modified ones. It's insane.
Yeah, I think, for me, it's that, they are a little bit more work to drive. They are enormous. They are kind of jouncy and bouncy, which is fun. But I think it's also like very rewarding, when you work to, dial in all that input, steer it. Yeah, it's fun. You lay on the gas and that diesel really gets going. I mean, it's good times. I think. This actually brings me to another kind of random tangent. We did a story on this about some company is like making new excursions or refurbishing excursions. If you remember, the excursion was essentially an F-250, like with, built like sort of an SUV build out on it. I kind of would argue maybe they should like special order these, but I bet you Ford could sell the excursion right now.
I mean, they kind of do with the Expedition Max. Is it the like long wheelbase?
Is that what they actually call it, the Expedition Max?
I think so.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
I mean, that effectively is.
It is. You're right.
I mean, it's not a heavy duty chassis. It's more like the F-150 chassis, but it's about the same size at this point.
I think that's probably the smart way to do it is they could still sell it without having like the baggage of the excursion name. Because frankly, you do that and Autoblog Green's going to start coming after you. But yeah, I mean, that
I'll
does
stick
give
my
you,
dog on you.
Right, yeah,
my
yeah.
tiny little Boston Terrier.
The Boston Terrier. I don't know. I think there could be a market for the excursion. It's totally random. I was even thinking of like doing a Twitter poll and maybe doing a column. These are like the crazy ramblings of what goes through my head. But I don't know.
I don't think you're wrong. I think they probably could sell. I don't think they could sell them long term, but I bet they could get a decent like 1 to 3 year run out of it.
Yeah, I mean, at least until gas prices go crazy, and yeah.
But I mean, if gas prices get too expensive to drive it, you can just live in it. I mean, it's big enough.
Right. You don't need an RV.
It
You
probably
just,
does have about the same square footage as like a tiny home.
Yeah, which always fascinates me. I always love cars that are big enough that I can, sleep in it overnight and have room for a bunch of stuff and my dogs and yeah, I don't even have to drive it. Just being in it, putting down all the seats and getting back there it makes me feel like a kid.
The profits would be there. I mean, hey,
Yeah.
they've already paid for the chassis. It's, amortized, as I butcher that word, but, it's paid for. So, anyways, that's a total crazy tangent. Let's talk about a car that does exist, the Lexus GS F.
Yeah.
And like John, this is one that I love it to death, but I also feel a little bit guilty driving it.
Why do you feel guilty?
Well, like I really, really, really love this car. It handles amazingly well for a mid-sized luxury car. It feels light and nimble, and like it'll take corners sharp and fast. And the V8 is so good. Like the Lexus 5-liter V8 is a gem. It sounds amazing, and it's got good power. It's really smooth and responsive. But the thing is, like, I love driving it so much. And when I got out of it, it's like, man, I really want a V8 car. And I was like, man, I really would feel guilty driving something that doesn't get better than like 25 tops.
That's a very
under 20 in town.
That's very noble of you to have that feeling, but I don't know. I think it's awesome.
No,
Yeah.
I love it. Like, I really do.
There's so much about this, like about this one that we have. It's got that matte gray paint. It's got that really cool blue interior with, some sort of like micro suede. I don't know if it's Alcantara brand or whatever, but micro suede on the dash and like not on the wheels though, which is nice. That was like a blue leather. But yeah, it looks amazing. It drives really well. It's a riot to drive. It's fast. It sounds great.
And like when you don't want to drive it fast, it's just so smooth and gentle,
comfy.
and like you just like roll on a little bit of power and just let it kind of burble away. And it's like, oh, that's so good.
Lexus has come a long way into making me actually care about their cars again in recent years.
That's a really good way to put it, actually.
I used to be bored by them.
Yeah.
They were boring.
Yeah.
They were super boring.
And now, they're doing a lot in terms of performance, in terms of like just a really special driving feel, and craftsmanship is been just crazy. The attention to detail in these cars and the higher end like sports cars.
Well, like Lexus interiors are excellent.
They're
I mean,
so
like
good.
This one I am 100% in love with. I love the blue everywhere, especially
Yeah.
the blue steering wheel. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Not on board with the matte black paint. Like it looks good, but I would hate to live with it.
No,
just because
yeah,
it
I
takes
agree.
like very special care to like keep it clean and.
I agree
things.
100%. I could never do matte paint unless it was like it's just like a car I spray painted some junker that was never going to touch again.
Right.
Yeah, very cool. And I think this is like, it's a nice entry point for a certain type of buyer who wants this kind of performance and then might be attracted, maybe he or she, decides they want to look at more of some of the Lexus crossovers. I mean, maybe they look at like the RC or something. I think I would not have said this a few years ago, but I just think the whole GS line is actually really pulling its weight with Lexus.
Yeah.
So,
I definitely wouldn't have said that, back in 2010.
yeah, totally. Cool. So that's the GSF, very enjoyable car. Let's talk briefly about the BMW X3, which we have in the fleet right now. It's I just took it. I've been putting a lot of around town miles on it. It's got the 2-liter twin turbo inline 4, 248 horsepower, 258 pound-feet of torque. I thought it felt pretty quick. It's surprisingly quick. A couple of times I saw the police And I was like, wow, I'm doing 10 over. Let's hope he just doesn't notice this guy in a white crossover, and I kind of blend into the surroundings. But yeah, I think it's a pretty good, for its class, this is a pretty good driving crossover.
Yeah, it's not bad. The 4-cylinder is great. I've actually been experiencing that 4-cylinder in a few different versions. I've driven the X4 and also the Z4, and it feels way more potent than like the numbers say.
Definitely.
Like, it's really, really responsive, great torque. It's good enough that it would be hard to say. It would be hard to say that you need to get the 6-cylinder. Like, this is more than enough. Like, it's a really good little engine. It even sounds good. The X4 that we had like a week or so ago with the exact same engine had the like M Sport exhaust or whatever. It sounded really good. It had a really nice little snarl to it. It's a great engine, and the transmission is good too.
8-speed automatic, yeah. I mean, 0 to 60 is 6 seconds, which honestly, that seems slow for how quick the car feels.
Yeah.
I know I almost don't think we're exaggerating, because in some ways, you know, you get in like a sports car, and if it doesn't rip your head off, you're like, oh, it's a disappointment. You know, this thing you get in there, and it's like, well, you're not expecting that much, but then boom, hit the floor, and away you go. And yeah, great powertrain. I mean, I guess we shouldn't be surprised. BMW powertrains have been quite good. Interior is a little tight for me. I thought I had a car seat in there, and it was pretty tight. That was a little disappointing. Good sized cargo hold though. I think this is like, when you look at the X3 and the X4, these to me are like young professional cars at this point. They're like, people don't buy small sedans much anymore. People don't buy sedans as much anymore. At least that's sort of the narrative, if you will. It's like, if you're like sort of a yuppie, or someone who's maybe working like their second job, you're making a nice paycheck, you're married, but you don't have kids, or maybe you have one kid and you're willing to kind of shoehorn that car seat in there. Okay, this might be your vehicle. I still think it's a little small for people with like true family life, but it's a very nice vehicle, and I'm sure they're selling plenty of them because people like crossovers, people like BMW crossovers. Yeah.
I do have a couple key gripes though. And one of them is, I don't like the steering. It feels like so many other BMWs now that just feels completely dead.
Yeah.
Like, you can't feel anything.
It's numb. It's very numb.
And it's disappointing because it does have a good chassis. Like, it handles pretty well. And actually, I've got the same complaint with the Z4. I don't know what it is at BMW that they can't get this right anymore. The other thing is, I'm just not impressed with the interior. It's fine, and like, if you like BMWs and BMW interiors, you're gonna be happy with it. But it doesn't wow you, and that's kind of an issue when like Mercedes and Audi and Volvo all have amazing interiors. That,
in that segment,
like beautiful materials, very interesting designs that feel airy and special and unique. BMW just kind of feels like the same BMW interior that's been around for like 30 years, and the materials don't seem all that great. Like, it's a lot of plastics, good plastics, but plastics, and they don't look very interesting. I don't know.
All the shapes and geometry are the same.
Yeah.
Like, I've been having a lot of trouble getting excited about BMW's smaller crossovers, and that was the case with all their crossovers for a while until the new X5 came out, and that one got my attention. I liked it quite a bit, except for the steering. Steering's really bad. And then the X7, I really liked that. But yeah, I just can't get excited about the X1, X2, X3, X4.
I think the X7 might be my favorite BMW SUV right now, which is kind of a random statement.
Yep.
But
No, yeah, I 100% agree with you.
yeah.
Yeah, I've got a soft spot for the X2 because I think it looks kind of cool, and
It does look cool.
it's basically
I like
a big mini, so it is kind of fun to drive.
It looks kind of slammed too, I think.
Yeah. But the X7 is probably the nicest right now, which I guess it should be.
It should be, but it's also, I think, the most appealing, and that's not always the case with, bigger and more expensive. Doesn't necessarily mean better.
Yeah.
But, so that's the X3. How about we spend some money?
Yeah, let's do it.
Cool. All right. So this one is a question from the R Cars section of Reddit where they ask questions about what they should buy. So this writer is looking for a solid daily driver. He has a wife and 2 kids in car seats. Here are the requirements. Enough space to fit all 4 comfortably. Cargo space is not critical as they also have a Toyota Highlander. 4 doors, roof rack compatible. Easy maintenance, something he could work on, or, parts and labor are not outrageous. Preferably under $15,000, might go as high as 20. Doesn't matter new or used, but admittedly, it's probably got to be used for that kind of money. Preferably under 50,000 miles if used. That's pretty reasonable. The make and model are not important. So we've got some parameters, we've got some specifics, but also not a lot of, I'd say, true like brand loyalty, not a lot of barriers here. So let's lead off with you, John.
Okay. I put a little thought into this, and my answer is not very exciting, but it doesn't look like that's important to this person. I think the 2016 Hyundai Santa Fe Sport, does a lot of these things well. It's got room for a couple kids. You can get it between 15 and 20 with pretty low miles still. I'm not sure. It won J.D. Power's 2019 Dependability Award for the segment, and I'm not sure how easy it is to work on, but you can
wouldn't have to do too much.
You can get it certified pre-owned, and with whatever's left on the 5-year, 60,000-mile warranty, and then the 10-year, 100,000-mile powertrain warranty. So, you won't have to work on it because they can just do it for you. Not the most exciting car, but you get I feel like you get a lot of content for your money in Hyundais. Very comfortable, and it checks the boxes, and reliable.
Really good choice. Very well thought out too, I must say. Joel, what do you think?
Well, I wish this guy was a little bit more specific about what he wants. It sounds like literally as long as this thing runs and has 4 doors, he's fine with it. But
we got to earn our money then.
Yeah, I guess I would recommend like a used Mazda 3. Rock solid reliability, really fuel efficient. They drive great. You can get a hatchback if you want more space. They're fairly affordable. Like it's a really good car.
It is,
and it's one that people maybe don't always think of. I mean, the easy answer here would be say, go to a Honda or Toyota dealer, tell them your budget, and they'll find you a version of their cars, and that'll work for them.
So that is basically my answer. Is since he's got 2 kids, I'm thinking Accord. Find a good Honda Accord. You could get car seats in there. It's a little tight, but since they've got the Highlander, that's that could be the family car, if you will. Go with like a late model Accord. Find the nicest one you could get, the newest one you could get. Look online, and that car will probably run for a very long time. Let's put it that way. So I like John's answer though, because that does get them into this like other SUV that maybe at some point you decide you don't need the Highlander. So you probably would be upgrading with all the features you could get on a Hyundai like that. But I'm sticking with the Accord. I think you can't go wrong with it. Let me put it that way. Is it the funnest choice? Absolutely not. But Mazda 3 would be a great fun car to drive too. Be a little tight, but fun car.
But you could go use Mazda 6. Almost the same thing, but bigger. And similar engines, just as reliable, really good to drive.
And he says roof rack compatible, but nowadays that's pretty much anything.
Yeah.
Like, you can just get a system installed.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think we'll leave it there. Hey, write us in. Reddit user, you probably wouldn't expect to be featured on the Autoblog podcast, but we like to spend people's money. And hey, every now and then we see a cool one on there and we want to jump in. So that's it for this week. Be safe out there. Send us your Spend My Money. Reach out to us on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, everywhere you can find Autoblog or the Autoblog Podcast. If you like the work we do on the show, please give us a 5-star rating on iTunes. We'll see you next time.